Hello everybody and welcome back to the Christmas edition of Sai Knows the Score. I mean, look, it doesn't look any different than probably the last videos, but it is the Christmas week. It's Christmas Eve at the time of recording this, so it might not actually drop until Christmas Day. So Merry Christmas. This will probably be my Christmas present from me to you. So yeah, I've got rid of my partner's parents, kicked them out the door just so I can try and get this video done and dusted before the only Boxing Day fixture, which we'll get onto shortly. But yeah, if you could try and make my Christmas dreams come true, which sounds really cheesy and I regret saying it like that, but yeah, look, we're nearly at 500 subscribers. If you could please drop a subscribe and like the video, that will be absolutely amazing. I will thank you very much, and Santa too, because that's on my wish list this year. So yeah, let's get straight into it. And of course, this is game week number 18, and do look out for some videos between now and New Year where I'm going to do some midpoint videos, because obviously after this one we're at the halfway point pretty much, aren't we? So I'm going to look at doing some videos for those. But yes, let's kick things off with let's see who we've got first. Actually, we've got Man United versus Newcastle. So Man United have now gone back to front, so they've been ending a lot of game weeks, haven't they, pretty much, and now they are kicking off the game week. So yeah, this is the only Boxing Day fixture, and so look, should Man United have got something at Villa Park? Yes, I think if we're being honest and realistic, they should have done, but they didn't learn their lesson, did they, from the first goal, and then let Morgan Rogers do the same thing again. So they've got themselves to blame, haven't they? Not learning in game. Look, they are at Old Trafford and are yet to make Old Trafford a fortress. So can Newcastle get something here? I mean, their away form still would say otherwise. They've only won a game on the road this season, haven't they? So it's not looking too great for Eddie Howe and Newcastle. Now, they were sublime at home at St James against Chelsea in the first half, but then let a two-goal lead slip, didn't they? So where do we go here? Again, you've got to go off form, haven't you? And I mean, their away form all season's not been great, so I'm actually going to go with a 2-1 Manchester United win. Moving on to the, I suppose, if you're a Man United fan, the dark side of Manchester, as we have Nottingham Forest at home to Manchester City. And look, it would have been ideal for Forest to have drawn with Fulham, I suppose, from a Leeds fan perspective. I do still see them finishing above Fulham, so wanted Fulham to be dragged down. I mean, it can still happen, of course. Only 4 points between, let's say, Leeds and Fulham. I mean, as a result of the game, though, Sean Dyche did come out in his press conference and say it was a wishy-washy performance. So now they are actually 17th, 5 points above the Hammers. So it's tough, isn't it, for any team to go to the City ground, even though Forest right now are actually 16th in the home form table. So how will Man City fare here? I mean, it is 7 wins in a row now for Pep and his players, and I feel they're going to continue applying pressure on Arsenal. So there's not much more to be said here on Man City, and I'm going to go with a narrow 2-1 Manchester City victory. Arsenal versus Brighton, and yes, Arsenal did scrape past Palace in their cup, didn't they, via penalties, and it only takes a draw to potentially lose their spot at the top. Now, we are seeing Arsenal win. We're not seeing Arsenal win comfortably. I'm just looking at the fixtures, and they're all very tight, aren't they? Usually a goal in the games for the most part, so it's not often they're actually winning fairly comfortably. So I do feel Brighton can make them really work for a win here, even at the Emirates. Speaking of Brighton, they've now gone 4 without a win, and of course there are some disappointing results in there, in particular West Ham, and I suppose you could argue Sunderland, given Sunderland have got players missing for AFCON, and Brighton were at home, where their home form has obviously, of course, been very good over the last 6-7 months. They will put in a good performance here. Well, maybe not good, maybe a decent performance, but I don't think it'll be enough to prevent Arsenal from being top of game week 18 or by the end of it. So I'm going to go with a 2-1 win to the Gooners. Brentford versus Bournemouth, and with Brentford, they didn't look great again away at Wolves, and I would say we're fortunate to be playing a team with no confidence, lacking real quality, and their next 4 are all very much winnable. So we'll see from these next 4 how safe Brentford could be come towards the end of the season. Bournemouth looked excellent at the start of the season and surprisingly find themselves sat in 15th and will soon be dragged into the bottom 5 at current rate, as Bournemouth actually sit 18th in the form table for the last 10 matches, taking only 8 points in the process. And only 2 teams, unsurprisingly, below them in the form table over the last 10 games are both Burnley and Wolves. So this, in a way, is a tricky one to call, and I feel this, even though I feel like Brentford's performances haven't been great recently, I do feel like it will be Brentford or draw, given Brentford on paper are very good at home. So I'm going to give it to the Buzzy Bees, and I'm going to give it to Brentford 2-1. Burnley versus Everton, and I say it every week, but at present, Burnley don't have the quality to stay up, and Scott Parker seems a bit defeatist now, doesn't he? Especially from what we've been hearing in his press conferences. Everton have lost twice now, and they'll probably bounce back here to help them maintain their top 10 position. It will be a tight game, as Burnley will look at this as another winnable game, but the lack of quality will hinder Burnley once more in both ends of the box. So I'm going to give this a narrow 1-0 victory to Everton, and of course them keeping a clean sheet. So yes, that is the final score for that one. Liverpool versus Wolves, and of course Liverpool were very fortunate to get away with a win against 9-man Spurs. We've got to bear in mind how Spurs have been recently too. Now, they'll of course be relieved to have a late Christmas present in having the probably doomed Wolves at Anfield, and Wolves are exactly that, doomed and will lose here, but I still acknowledge the Arsenal game. They will try to make it difficult for Liverpool to break them down away from home. So I'm going to go only 2-0 Liverpool, but if people feel Liverpool will score more goals, then it wouldn't be surprising at all. I'm just looking at the Arsenal game. They're going to be so defensive. I think they're going to make it really difficult for Liverpool to break them down. So yeah, I think 2-0 is going to be the score for that one. West Ham versus Fulham, and West Ham fans are turning on themselves, and I've seen a lot of videos from West Ham fans, and it's really not looking good for them with the protests happening too. So these next 4 fixtures where Leeds have it tough and West Ham have shall we say, an easier run of fixtures where they have Fulham, Brighton, Wolves and Forest, with Wolves the only away fixture, but I'll probably feel like another home fixture anyway. So I feel really from those fixtures, they might actually be looking to try and get, minimum 8 points, 7, 8 points really. And if they get that, then I think if they're there with Forest and Leeds and they're not necessarily plugged right in the bottom 3, it might actually help the transfer window, and it's going to entice players to come feeling that they can make a difference enough to help them stay up. Now, of course, I do not want that to happen. No offence, West Ham fans. Fulham have lost some key players to AFCON, and whilst it didn't look amazing against Forest or Burnley, they seem to know how to win. Now, their away form isn't awful, sat in 14th with 7 points, and this is a tough one to predict because if the fans get behind West Ham, although I appreciate it's difficult to generate a top atmosphere regardless at the London Stadium, I can see them beating Fulham and think this will be a juicy match in terms of goals. So I'm actually going to go with a 5-goal thriller. I'm going to go with a 3-2 West Ham win, but I'm certainly keen to get what you guys think about this one, so do pop in your comments below. Chelsea versus Villa, and this is another juicy fixture, and maybe one that will be, well, I'm definitely keen to watch anyway, I know that for sure. Chelsea haven't been great at home, where they're not scoring abundance of goals. However, I do think they may get a couple here. How many exactly? Because Chelsea, I believe, scored 12 now at home. They've conceded 7. So it's not a lot, is it, in the 7 games that they've had at home, or 7 or 8 games that they've had at home. So for a team like Chelsea, you expect more, don't you? Now, when we look at Villa, Emery deserves so much praise and credit, winning 10 in a row in all competitions, and it's interesting seeing these wins were almost all by 1 goal, where they've not always looked deserving of the win. such as the recent game against Man United, and there's a couple others that you can throw in there too. I'm going to go with my gut feeling here, and I think their winning run comes to an end. So Chelsea will score 2 and Villa will only score 2, making it 2-2, the final score, but they haven't lost, and I'm sure just a singular point at Stamford Bridge wouldn't be too disheartening for them, unless they are really, really thinking they're going to win the league this year. Then maybe it will be highly disappointing. Sunderland versus Leeds, and when the Premier League fixtures first came out, this was a fixture both Sunderland and Leeds fans would have been looking at and potentially thinking, okay, we can get 3 points here to help one of these sides stay up. Now, of course, context applied. We have Sunderland sat in 6th place after 17 games with 27 points, which is pretty nuts, especially for a newly promoted team recently. So this feels like it could be a stretch for Leeds to get something here, even with the players missing for Sunderland, given their performance away at Brighton last week. So look, Leeds have done phenomenally well, gaining 8 points from the last 4, with them all being difficult home and away fixtures, where the 4-1 smashing against Palace was an unbelievable result, where it was the most comfortable I've actually felt watching a Leeds game all season, until the penalty and then them hitting the post right afterwards. That was the only moment where I didn't actually feel that at ease. So we'll have to maintain that same physicality, getting balls in the box, throw-ins, crosses, corners, play for set pieces. We've got to do this here. And, you know, Sunderland will be well up for this. The crowd are going to be well up for this. It's definitely going to be a tough game to predict the score for. I just think, annoyingly, I feel this could go to Sunderland. I'm going to go with a narrow 1-0 win. And look, I don't think Sunderland have actually lost at the Stadium of Light this season. So it does very much feel like Sunderland or draw. But it would be such a Leeds thing to somehow go and overturn that and actually win that particular game. But I'm going to be a realist and go with a 1-0 Sunderland victory. And the final match of Game Week 18, we have Palace versus Spurs. And Palace have had a very droll week, with them slipping into the Conference League playoffs after resting players for the Leeds game, for them to only go away and get battered at Ellen Road, along with a penalty shootout loss at the Emirates against Arsenal. I think it was 8-7, wasn't it? So it was quite a nuts scoreline in terms of penalties there. Now, look, they did look a bit more solid against what is considered the best team in Europe according to Opta's power rankings in Arsenal. So a good step in the right direction, although still disappointing for them. Thomas Frank will need to come up with the goods now, or he will definitely be odds on to get the sack next. Well, it'll be between him and Parker, I suppose. Well, you'd imagine so right now. Now, they look better with 10 and, I suppose, 9 men than with 11, so maybe an early red card will help them here. So I do think Palace will get back to winning ways, though, and put on a good display here. So I'm going to go with 2 goals to Palace, along with a clean sheet to make the final prediction of the game week. 2-0 to Palace, with Frank looking down at the end of a double-barrel gun. Hopefully not literally, though, more figuratively of course. But yeah, that is going to be the final score of 2-0 Palace against Spurs to conclude Game Week 18. And so yeah, look everybody, I hope you've all having a great Christmas, had a great Christmas. If you're watching this during Christmas Day, I hope that you have a fantastic Christmas. Wow, a lot of Christmas and stumbling of words there, wasn't it? But we'll have another game week between now and New Year. So I'm going to hold off on wishing everyone a New Year now, unless you don't, of course, see the next one. So if you don't, have a great New Year. And until the next one, goodbye for now, and let's all get merry on Christmas.